Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video we're going to be doing 8 new fun builds, including a couple weapons people requested that I cover, like the Magma scale sword, and a lot of these are combination builds, different fun things you could do together. This is a really enjoyable video with 8 different builds. Let's get into this one. We're going to talk about a few things and then jump into the builds. Yeah, it's going to be cool in the sense that you're going to be able to mix different things, like the Magma scale sword build that we're going to show off in a little bit. You're going to be able to do incantations with that one. We have a mage build that you can combine weapons with spells too. That one's really cool also. Including a jump attack build that ended up doing way more damage than I expected. I wanted to do something for people at rune level 150 ahead of doing my higher level builds and setups this upcoming Sunday, so I decided to do this one. This is thrilling and cool builds at rune level 150. Alright, let's jump into this one. We're going to jump right in with the first one up here, which is going to be the spinning dragon build. This is going to end up combining spinning strikes with dragon incantations. Yeah, so this is definitely a personal favorite on this list. A lot of these I really enjoy. Again, a lot of them you can combine different things. In this case, we're going to be using spinning strikes on the grave scythe, and we're going to be using that in occult affinity and then mixing in dragon incantations like dragon ice. It's actually a decent way to get damage. You get a lot of bleed build up. Spinning strikes is really powerful, and then when you back off and you get out of range, you have that option of going to the dragon incantations and using them, and they do have a lot of range on them. They actually do hit from really far away too. Yeah, I'm starting to love spinning strikes. It's becoming one of my favorite Ashes of War. It's appeared in a couple of my videos recently because it has so much build up, so much damage, excessive attack power, and just the amount of bleed you get is insane. Yeah, I mean, the Grave Scythe is probably best in heavy affinity with Bloodflame Blade because it's good and heavy, but this is cool too. It works in Occult and it works with this build. We have an Occult affinity with Spinning Strikes. We have the Dragon Communion Seal. You can check out the armor set there. We have the Shard of Alexander, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Roar Medallion, Thorny Tear, Faith Tear. In a second here, we're going to go over stats as well. And for stats, we have 60 Vigor, 23 Mind, 26 Endurance. We have 18 Strength, 15 Dexterity, 45 and 45 Arcane and Faith, by the way, for the Dragon Community Seal for good scaling. And to get decent damage on Occult with the weapon, we're using Golden Vow, Hellish Brewery, Dragon Ice, and Dragon Claw. And this is one I recommend trying for sure. I like this one a lot. It's a good combination build. You could do a lot with Occult Affinity and the Dragon Communion Seal. Now the next one up here is the Magma Wyrm Scale Sword Fire build. This is the same stats, by the way, as my Hallowed Inferno build. If you haven't checked out the build I'm going to be using for DLC, check it out in the description below after this video. I think you're going to like it a lot. It has a ton of versatility. Now, the Magma Wyrm Scale Sword is actually quite good. Probably should have made my top 20 Somber weapons list because it is pretty powerful on the Ash of War, but at the same time, the Ash of War is a little bit long and sometimes dangerous to use too. When you pull it off, though, it's quite good because it leaves a trail of literal magma on the ground, and the fire part's going to scale, I believe, with Faith. The actual physical part on the weapon, though, it's a lot of physical damage. It's going to scale with your strength stats, so keep that in mind. Now, the Magma Wyrm Scale Sword itself, you could throw in different incantations if you have decent faith, which we have here. We're using fire incantations, the Giant Seal. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Magma Wyrm Scale Sword plus 10. We're using the Giant Seal for fire incantations. You can check out the armor set there. We have the Shard of Alexander, Ritual Sword Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon for chargeable incantations, Flame Tear, Faith Tear. And for stats, now with the Faith Tier, we're going to end up with 60 Faith. We're going to have 40 Strength, but two-handing will give us 60 Strength and 60 Faith with the Faith Tier. We have 60 Vigor. We're using Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, Burno Flame, Giant's Flame Take Thee, and Catch Flame. Now, this next one is probably my favorite one on this entire list, and that's the Lightning Watchdog. The Watchdog's Greatsword actually gets a B in Lightning Affinity, which is quite good, and with the charge attacks, when you add Lightning Slash, you can get a lot of damage out of this one. Because with Lightning Slash, you're going to get close to 950 AR. In this case, the dragon will take extra lightning damage, and then you're going to get good poise damage on the charge attacks, which we've built around 2 for a well-rounded, solid build. And a cool one too. By the way, if you're watching to this point in the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to join an awesome Elden Ring community, and also the Discord is in the pinned comment below if you want to join that as well. There's over 700 people now. Yeah, imagine it's going to be a very busy Discord when DLC comes around. I can't wait for DLC. I'm so excited for it at this point. It's literally 2 months away, and honestly, this is probably the longest 2 months ever. I mentioned that in my last video. It feels like the longest wait at the end here, but it is going to be worth the wait. By the way, the new combat system that's going to be in DLC, where you kind of have to power up along the way to get stronger, I think that's the concept behind the combat system. I think a lot of charged hits, poise damage, etc. builds like this one are going to excel in DLC. Just a guess, and of course mages, because FromSoftware seems to love magic, so that'll be powerful. Let's jump into equipment. So we have the Watchdog's Greatsword in Lightning Affinity with Lightning Slash, gets close to 950 AR. Any seal for buffs, Knight's Cavalry Armor Altered. We have the Strength Talisman, I'll talk about that in a second. Lightning Scorpion Charm, Axe Talisman, Urchi's Favorite +2, Lightning Tier, Faith Tier. Now that Strength Talisman was just because I needed to meet those requirements to two-handed. If you have 20 or 21 Strength anyway, then you could use any Talisman in that slot. The Shard of Alexander would be good if you're using the Ash of Wyrm. We're using Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength. We have 60 Vigor, 70 Dexterity. And also, by the way, if you don't need the Faith Tier for buffs, use the Stamina Regen Tier for that one. That'd be perfect. Next up here, we have an awesome Cragblade Jump Attack build. So I wanted to use a non-meta jump attack sword, and there's going to be better than this. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I ended up using the Falchion, if that's how you say it. I believe that's the actual proper pronunciation of this weapon. But with Cragblade on jump attacks, you get a ton of physical damage and an A in strength scaling. This build is really cool, and you have that A in heavy affinity, but even with that, the Beastman curved swords are about, they're a little bit better by about, I think, around 30 or 40 damage in there, and then I think the Gargoyle's Twin Blades are about 60 damage better, so you have two better options, but I wanted to try something non-meta. We have two of the Falchions, if that's how you say it, as goofy as that sounds, at heavy affinity with Cragblade. We have the Claw Mark Seal, Raptor's Black Feathers, Claw Talisman, Rotwing Sword Signium, Melissa's Prosthesis, Ritual Swords Talisman, Thorny Tier, Faith Tier. Let's jump into stats. Yeah, I know sometimes my pronunciation isn't the best on certain words. I did look that one up, and supposedly it's pronounced Falchion, so I guess that's correct. I hope so. Anyways, we have 66 Strength, 60 Vigor, we have 25 Faith with the Faith Tier, and of course we're using Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength to buff this build. And now we're on to the next build here, which is an all-holy build, and this is one I honestly would consider for DLC if I already hadn't made my pick, though honestly with my exact stats I could do the same build that's set up too, so I guess I could do this one as well because it's also a little bit of strength and faith, but this is an all-holy percentage damage build. Its focus is on three things: Black Blade and a Black Knife, which by the way, if you're quick enough with it, actually does stack. You could stack the Black Blade incantation with the Black Knife or Malachi's Black Blade. Now Malachi's Black Blade and the Black Knife don't stack, but the Black Blade incantations and Black Knife stack. I know a lot of information, but it's good information to know, especially as we go into DLC, and a lot of people think Holy's going to be good. And of course we have the Gargoyle's Black Blade too for the awesome Ash of War, which also does a little bit of percentage damage and Holy damage and scales with Faith. So yeah, this is something I'd consider for DLC. I love the idea of percentage damage if Holy ends up being good. Now if Holy doesn't end up being good, that's going to be a huge disappointment for me. As somebody who loves Faith, I feel like Holy needs a part to play, and DLC could be that part. And of course, you know, you're trying to get to your equipment and whatnot, and you're getting hit by rolling sheep for some reason. Anyways, we're going to jump into equipment stats, everything you need to know for this cool build. Then we have the Gargoyle's Black Blade, preferably +10. We have the Black Knife +10. We're using the Erdtree Seal. You can check out the armor set there. That's what I use for the Hallowed Inferno build. Phlox Canvas Talisman, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Ritual Swords Talisman, Shard of Alexander. Then we have the Holy Tier and Faith Tier. And now we're going to jump into stats for this awesome build. This is going to be the same stats. Two of these were the same stats as an extension of the Hallowed Inferno build. That's the build I'm going to be taking into DLC. We have 60 Vigor, 60 Strength when we two-hand. We have 60 Faith with the Faith Tier, 21 Mind, 25 Endurance, Golden Vow, Hellish Brewery, and the Black Blade Incantation. And these are the exact stats that I'm going to be taking into Shadow of the Erdtree. Next one up on this list is one that I really enjoyed doing. Now, I did a Serpent Bow build not long ago, but I didn't really do anything for Barrage. This is a build for the Red Branch Short Bow and Barrage. And what this actually entails is using Blood Arrows and Rot Arrows while also going for a light equipment load, because the Blue Dancer Charm here, since we're under a weight of 8, is going to give us the maximum amount of physical damage it can increase you by. And the concept is to apply Rot, which you could do with the Rot Arrows at a decent pace with Barrage, and then of course use the Blood Arrows to get Bleed procs. In this case, the dragons are pretty status resistant, and we're still able to get Bleed procs, Rot procs, and do good damage. Interesting story if you want to find out a little bit about how my channel started. Way back when my channel started, I actually did a run through the game. I don't know if that video is still up there. I got rid of some of my older videos, but I did a run through the game with a bow. I did use summons and such, and honestly I can say it was a challenge that was a lot of fun. So if you're waiting for DLC and you're thinking, I need something to challenge me through Elden Ring, and you feel like maybe going at rune level 1 is too difficult, try running through the game with a bow. Even use summons, it's still challenging even with summons, and it can give you some entertainment along the way. It's a recommended challenge for me. As far as if you're looking for something that's difficult but you can actually make work, bows are kind of perfect for that. Yeah, they're not amazing, they're not super overpowered, but they're a lot of fun to use and give you a nice challenge too. Now my recommendation is to proc rot first. Get that rot proc, have the health bar go down gradually with the rot, and then use the bleed arrows to get in some bleed procs, and you can take down bosses decently with a simple bow and arrow. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the red branch short bow, maxed out preferably, and you have blood arrows, rot arrows. We have any seal for buffs, we're just using the cloth pants, arrows, reach, and sting talisman, blue dancer charm, and then we have the shard of Alexander, green burst crystal tier, and faith tier. So how the Blue Dancer Charm works is the lower equipment load, the more physical damage you'll get. So if you're under 8, you'll get around 14% increase, under 16 around 12%, and anything above like 24 is pretty much a negligible increase. We have 60 Vigor, 70 Dex, we're using Golden Vow, and Flame Grant Me Strength. And the next one up here is a pretty fire build, and that is the Fire Knight build, where we're going to be using the Iron Greatsword with Flaming Strike, but just kind of, generally speaking, as a secondary option to using the One-Eyed Shield and the really cool Ash of War it has, which basically shoots a giant fireball. And being able to shoot a giant fireball is really fun with your shield, and of course you're able to block with the shield too. Now, it isn't the best shield in terms of guard boost. There's better out there. The Vicid shield I think is a lot better. There's several other better, bigger shields, but you'll still get a decent amount of defense with this one. Speaking of which, my high-level builds and setups, if we want to call them setups instead of builds. Some people still call them builds. I like to call them setups. But anyways, this upcoming Sunday, I'm going to be doing that. It's a really cool video. It came out great. We actually did an awesome tank build that you got to check out at high levels. It's incredible what you could do. Yeah, it turned into a super cool build that had like a 90% physical damage resistance, and I took on the duo boss fight on New Game Plus 7 at Redmane Castle, and the Crucible Knight could not do like much damage to me at all. And I have a build and set up for the Vicid Shield in that one too that also uses fire. In this case though, I like the Fireball. I like the ranged option, and then of course if you want to add in Flaming Strike and add fire to your sword, hit with that too, and then block with the shield, you have a nice setup. All around a cool fire build. And by the way, we're not in Flame Art this time, we're in Fire Affinity because it scales with Strength, and that kind of fits the build as a whole. We're going to jump into equipment and stats. For equipment, we have the Iron Greatsword and Fire Affinity with Flaming Strike. We have any seal for buffs. The Clawmark seal would be good here, though. We have the One-Eyed Shield. We have the Fire Monk set. I gotta use Weightless, though, because I was close to the equipment load. Shard of Alexander, Fire Scorpion Charm, Ritual Sword, Talisman, Arsenal Charm +1, Flame tier, Faith tier. Let's talk about stats. And now for stats, we have 60 Vigor, we have 66 Strength, we have 23 Mind, 32 Endurance, a decent amount of Endurance, and it's still pushing the equipment load. And then of course to buff this, we're using Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for the One-Eyed Shield. And last one on here is a really fun spell that I enjoy a lot, but I don't highlight a lot on my channel. It's really good for big targets like dragons, etc., and that is Shard Spiral with a little bit of a build for Glintstone Pebble Ash of War 2. So I was messing around with different mage stuff, and then I realized like I was using a lot of the more overpowered weapons. In this video, I kind of wanted to go with the off-meta options, so I decided to use this short sword that ends up giving you a Glintstone Pebble Ash of War, and then the Shard Spiral spell. Anyways, I was going to say real quick, I hope everybody enjoyed this video, and some of these builds you could take on Elden Ring and have a little bit of fun in the meantime, because we're waiting for DLC. And if you want to see more fun builds, definitely comment below. And if you guys want to see that video for the top 20 Spithing weapons and Ash combos, definitely comment that too. By the way, I would have ended up doing the smithing weapon and Ash combos one this week, but it was actually my birthday weekend. I wanted to have everything done before the weekend anyways, and I just didn't have enough time. But I do know there's a lot of people that want to see that video, so I am definitely looking forward to doing that one too. Even like the not as good mage Ashes of War, like Glintstone Pebble for example, it's a decent Ash of War, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be like the Darkmoon Greatsword. They're still good. Like all mage stuff in Elden Ring, anything mage related is just decent no matter what. I feel like that's true for mostly all Souls games. You have no doubt mages are going to be good for Elden Ring's DLC as well. It'll be a solid build for most of these. We have Lazuli's Glintstone Sword, preferably +10. We're using Lusette's Staff. The Spellblade set will boost this. Any seal for buffs. We have the Shard of Alexander, Ritual Swords Talisman, Magic Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Magic tier, and then the Faith tier. This is a bit of a mixed build where you can cast and use the Ash of War. Let's jump into stats. This is a bit of a buffed up mage. We're using Golden Vow and Howl of Shabriri, so we have 33 Faith with the Faith tier. We have 60 Intelligence, 60 Vigor, 23 Mind, 22 Endurance. We're using Shard Spiral as well, and you can throw in a Duelist Moonblade, and Comet is a nice addition as well. And thanks for watching this one. Thanks for tuning into this video, this little bit of a short fun video that hopefully gives you some builds to play around with while we're waiting for DLC. Definitely be sure to sub if you like my content. I'm going to be covering a ton of Elden Ring's DLC when it releases. I'm also starting, it's going to be tonight that I'm working on this video, but by the time this video is posted, it'll probably be done, an early game guide for Dark Souls 3, and then I'm going to do some Bloodborne content if people are interested in that too on my other channel, my alternate channel. If you're interested in that, let me know, and I will catch everybody soon.